So let's talk about one of the worst failures that I've ever come across. Super predator, Louis Van Wee, who was murdered at the age of 82, who was doing 30 years for molesting over 100 children through a janitor, closet, roofs, and all different hospitals that he worked at before he was finally arrested after a 7-year-old came forward and said that he held him over a roof, and also another little girl who was also molested by him came forward. And he would hold them over the roof, as I was saying, and threaten them and say, "I'll drop you right now." This is at a fucking hospital. This man was doing this shit for 40 years. Think about that. This is a real life monster. I mean, the man just somehow slipped under the radar. Bullshit. Hospitals, institutions, therapeutic cares. As we know, this is where these super predators hunt. In our schools, in our hospitals, social service, all these different agencies, law enforcement, everything. Because as we see, they're more worried about their reputation and what they don't want to do compared to what they should be doing. The way they said it was, oh, he was under the radar. Many cases involving institutional abuse, it's possible that there were lapses and oversights. Imagine that, lapses and oversight. You're hanging children off buildings, threatening their lives in hospitals. And y'all call that an oversight? 100 children? And it gets worse. He had 30 years. He was down to the last 2 months before he'd be released at 82 years old, where he'd go and continue to hurt more children until he would eventually die. But karma's a bitch. You see, he thought he beat every institution. He thought he beat the legal institution, and he thought he was on his way home and survived those 30 years in prison. With 2 months remaining, he was walking to the chow hall from his protective custody unit, probably thinking to himself about the children, laughing to himself about how he actually lived those 30 years, basically got away with everything, and is gonna go finish strong with one last run. Except this time, an unidentified inmate would grab him by the back of the head and start viciously slashing him with a razor before throwing him on the ground where he cracked the back of his head. Then take a lock and start beating in the front of his head, where he'd ultimately be dazed and dying. But it didn't end there for this chomo super predator. He would ultimately get his throat slit, where this piece of shit would gargle his last breaths and die on that prison floor. Imagine that. You're a child of this demon, and you look on the news and see he's about to get out of prison. A man who destroyed lives and families, infiltrated our institutions, and once again shows us that it's the ones that are supposed to protect us that kill us, that hurt us. So that's why you see an inmate that does such a violent, vicious crime like that to him. This is a perfect example of time doesn't exist, only opportunity. 29 years and 10 months. He took beatings. You know, he had shit happen to him, pissed on him. But right before he walked out the gate to go offend again, he was viciously murdered. This inmate's taking out the trash that society just keeps overlooking. Oversights, as they call it. In prison, there's no such thing as coincidences. Obviously, nobody expected him to make it. Yet, what's worse for one of these demonic psychopaths is to think that they won the game and they're gonna go continue until they ultimately pass away. To have it right in front of them, yet get their throat cut, and their last thoughts is them being humiliated. I'm gonna leave you with this video. Stay out. Stay free.
These are, you know, they talk about monsters, you laugh about it, but he's a real life monster. And he did a lot of damage to a lot of children.
The Department of Corrections and Community Supervision confirmed